the woman was a Greek, was in fact an Israelite. Giving all praises to Yahweh Shem Yahushua B'Shem HaKakodash. I was just going over this video, checking out the video. IUIC New Jersey, the Israelites, Christian apologetics versus the Israelites. Yeah, apologist. The word should be apologist. It just means come from the Greek word apologia, which means when the Apostle Paul spoke about I am set for the defense of the gospel, the word defense is apologia. So an apologist is nothing but somebody that's in the defense of something, like the Christian doctrine. So, I'm watching a video, short video, 13 minutes, 27 seconds long. So right now I'm at the almost 5 minute part of the video. You can start from the very beginning. The brother broke it down very well. He was dealing with a Ephraimite who was, I guess he's an apologist. And he's going, and they always go into this about the, what about the Gentiles? The Gentiles, it's mentioned in the New Testament, they can receive salvation too. Yes, but those Gentiles were Israelites. And then they will go to Galatians 3 verse 28, where it says the Jews first, and then the Greeks. And they'll say, well, what about that one? Those are the Greeks. So the Most High only came for two nations, the Israelites and then the Greeks. But the Canaanites, the Romans, all these other nations mentioned through the scriptures, the Most High added another nation. He said, you know what? I'm going to save Israel, but I'm going to save the Greeks too. The hell with the Romans, the hell with the Babylonians, the hell with the Medo-Persians. They can't make it. So a Christian should only teach, well, if you're not a Greek, you're not going to make it. If you're not a Greek, you're not going to make it, according to them. Well, that word Greek goes back to the word, when you go through that word Greek, it goes back to the word Hellenian, which when you look it up, it's talking about someone who, and it's referring to Israelites, because you had Israelites, the kingdom of Judah, which was forced under the customs of the Greeks, mainly doing, well, this brother said under Alexander. Alexander didn't force the Greek thing on us. As a matter of fact, Alexander the Greek, he knew Hebrew. He had visions. He had at least one vision of the high priest. There were a company of priests dressed in white, and he saw them in a vision and basically bowed down to them and kissed their ass and gave them gifts. He didn't tax them. He taxed everybody else, but he let the Israelites be the Israelites. So he was a little off on that, but that's all right. Now, when they became Hellenized, was during the time period of. So we're talking about 150 years later. I'm not going to go all into the history. We're talking 150 years later, because Alexander lived during a period of around 300 BC. Antiochus Epiphanes lived during the same time as the Maccabees Empire Kingdom, and that was around about 150. So we're talking about 150 years later. That's when they started forcing the Greek way of life unto us. You had to eat pork, you had to dress in the Greekish fashion, you had to wear a hat, you had to attend the place of exercise, which is the modern day gym. Gymnos meaning naked. You know, that's the history. Another thing the brother said, you got to know the history. That's what we say. If you don't know the history, you don't know the mystery. And these Christians don't know the history. They don't know. They don't understand biblical history. What happened during these times that's spoken of in the scriptures. Now, scholars do, but they don't have it all. They go off on a lot of things. Anyway, you Christians, man, when you see Israelites, you should run down the street because you always get a spiritual ass whipping. All of y'all, from vocab on down. Anyway, he mentioned, you know what? Let me let you play it. I might come back a little bit. Just gonna say a few words on it.
Into the borders of Tyre and Sidon.
So Christ arose, went into the borders of Tyre and Sidon. Who lived in Tyre and Sidon? Hamites. Tyre and Sidon was descendants from Ham or Canaan.
But you had Israelites that were living among them. You had Israelites that were, remember, they were scattered. It tells you that in Isaiah 11. It tells you that in Acts 2, that they were scattered. You had two classes of Israelites. You had Israelites that knew that they were Israelites that were living outside of Israel. And then you had Israelites, these Israelites that were living outside of Israel knew that they were Israelites. And the whole thing about the Pentecost, which represents the Feast of Weeks, that's what the Pentecostal church is all about. And they don't even understand why they even call Pentecostals. Anyway, you had Israelites that were required, men that were required, and of course they brought their families, were required 3 times in a year to come together. That's in Deuteronomy 16 and 16. So these people in Acts, the 2nd chapter, knew that they were Israelites, just living other languages, not necessarily knowing the Hebrew. That's why the first major miracle was the apostles speaking different languages, because they were speaking to the people, pushing the gospel to the Israelites that were scattered, that came together for the Passover, the unleavened bread, the Feast of Weeks, the tabernacle, and so forth. So they came 3 times in a year. And then you have another class of Israelites, which were Israelites that were Hellenized during the time of Antiochus Epiphanes, during the time of the Maccabees, where they forced them. That's in First Maccabees, the 1st chapter, and that's a good chapter. You know, I'd like to go into that. It goes into how, just like people are being forced to take this jab, it's the same spirit that was back there. They were forcing them to take it. And now, you know, I'm thinking that this guy, Joe Biden, President Joe Biden, could be Antiochus coming back, because everything is reincarnated. That's another thing that these Christians don't understand. Anyway, yeah, even vocab lost sleep on that, the whole reincarnation thing. So let's listen. Let's listen. Oh, I'm sorry. The other class, like I said, they were Hellenized. So all they knew was, they didn't know nothing about Israel. All they knew that they was, not circumcising their sons, not keeping the Sabbath, feeding them pork. A lot of them were even speaking Greek. That's why Paul was able to speak Greek, because he was speaking to a lot of Israelites that were not born in Jerusalem. All right?
There's the sons of Canaan, right? Or wrong? Through Genesis 10. Read.
And entered into a house.
Read.
And would have no man know it. But he could not be hid.
Read.
For a certain woman whose young daughter had an unclean spirit.
So a certain woman whose daughter had an unclean spirit, remember, they're in what? Tyre and Sidon, correct? Read.
Heard of him, came and fell at his feet.
Read.
The woman was a Greek.
Wait a minute. The woman was a Greek. Read.
A Syrophoenician by nation.
Wait a minute. It says she was a Greek, but a Syrophoenician by what? By what?
By nation.
By nationality. So how is she a Greek? Well,
Now she wasn't a Greek, neither was she a Hamite. She was Israelite. That's why the Lord ultimately healed her. Just like no different than the centurion whose servant was sick, and the Lord healed his servant. That centurion was also an Israelite. He said, "I have not seen so faith in all of Israel," meaning in all of Israel I haven't seen this type of faith. Because he was going to go to the man's house. Why did he go to a Rome Edomite man's house? You know, because the man wasn't an Edomite. He was an Israelite, just like this woman. Now the woman at the well in St. John 4 was of another nation, and the Lord told her that. You know, and you say is Jerusalem the place to worship? He said, I'm paraphrasing. You can go to it, John 4. He said, "You know not what you worship, for salvation is of the Israelites, of the Jews," he said. You know? He said, the hour cometh when the true worshipers shall worship, merely paraphrasing. Like I said, you can go to it and read it or put it in the comment section. So that woman at the well was of another nation. This woman right here that healed the woman's daughter was an Israelite, but she was living among a place where the Canaanites dwelt. Remember, the Canaanites was pushed out. Remember that. Go back to Deuteronomy 7 chapter. Uriah the Hittite was not a Canaanite. Uriah the Hittite was an Israelite that was living in the land of Canaan. You had the Amorites, the Hivites, the Hittites, the Girgashites, the Perizzites. So, and that was something that was taught back at One West. They used to go to that scripture, Mark 7, and I remember Shai used to say it. So the woman was a Greek. That means she was a white woman. No, that means she was an Israelite. The term Greek is the same term. If you go to Galatians 3 verse 28, it's the same Greek. So if it's the same exact word, Greek is talking about she was an Israelite. She was definitely an Israelite, but she didn't know necessarily that she was an Israelite. She was one of the lost Israelites that didn't know her nationality. Another example, boy, just came to my mind and it just left. Right, I believe it's St. John 12 when it speaks about this feast, and the scribes and the Pharisees noticed that these Greeks were following the Lord at this feast. Now these wasn't Greek people; these were Israelites that didn't know that they were Israelites, so they started waking up. Anyway, that's all I'm going to say. Giving all praises to Yahweh B'Shem Yahushua B'Shem Rakakwadash.